Hello and welcome. So I've been doing some research, looking around for some papers, found some evidence that I thought I would share in relationship to the region I've been kind of into recently over here. Um, this one, I just close that. This one, this is basically from the beginning of the Earth expansion process to present, so I thought this one would be very important when it comes to the pulses, glacial melt pulses of the Younger Dryas. Essentially, I've been coming to the conclusion that the KT boundary around here, or that's 50, so this is the KT boundary around here, starting around 80 million, really, when a lot of things started to expedite. 120 to 80 million, a lot of things start to expedite, approaching 65 million, where a lot of things are happening in that time frame, substantial things globally, that tie into the build-up to the fracturing of the continents apart so that they could then separate and have undercurrents fill the space between as ocean floors rather than putting more material under the continental crust, which is basically what happens here. So it's interesting that there's this map or this graph showing the water level. It's almost like this is the Great Flood, and then it goes down, and then it comes back up to a degree that maybe this whole thing is the flood, and then it starts to alleviate. This is the end of the flood. Going to present, and then like overlaying this is this is a Younger Dryas. This is maybe like 22,000 years radiometric dating and other methodologies we use that tie into like the Ramayana. This is more the Mahabharatan War, which is when Dwarka is attacked specifically. So there might be a period where the flood is occurring. That's possibly here, or throughout. Hard to say exactly, but it's of interest because this is under the interpretation of uranium-lead type of radiometric dating that yields this type of range, whereas Younger Dryas is based on carbon dating and other methods that yield a different range, but they overlap one another. So this is important, like draining of the water. So let's just keep going through some details. The 7 eastern lakes form a radiating pattern that projects northward to eastern Lake Ontario, whereas the 4 smaller western lakes of the 11 Finger Lakes, project to a point near Rochester. Definitely relevant to my last video I said, which was, I guess like 261 or whatever my last video is right now, probably. I'm not sure if I posted since then. I might have had one video since then. In the above, the western lakes are related to Rochester. So here's Rochester here. I'm not sure why I only put that one. Severn Lakes this way, and then these lakes go this way. Essentially, the Rochester Lakes seem more related this way, where the eastern 7 lakes seem more related to the Hudson Bay, is kind of what I was thinking as a point of origin. So there's cross currents going on over here that are interacting with the Hudson Bay and interacting with this flame thing. Then I said, not sure, but there appears like there might be a mimicking of aspects of the Hudson Bay in North America in a relatively equal but opposite manner. So I just, looking here, so I put in some colors, green yellow, red, fuchsia, aqua, teal. And then relating it, green, yellow. So the yellow I've been talking about in here where the boundary is here. So the red is actually outside. So it's kind of mimicking but opposite. Where in that case, this structure is actually outside, where in this case it's inside. Or else this structure like extends further in part in an energetic way that is not this boundary, but this is more of an inner boundary. I don't know. So as to actually incorporate the Appalachians as like a mirror of this. And then, so we've got that Finger Lakes Central eddy that generally is here. And then we've got that little section. So we've got one eddy with a circle here, another eddy with a circle here, and then a third structure here that like runs up to this eddy, and then it has this like fan structure here. So we've got the first eddy with a circle type of boundary, and then a second one, and then this thing here, and then here, this little wedge type thing, where possibly it's mimicking. Also over here, there's this going on. Over here, there's similar thing going on. Just a thought. I'm not completely sold that it's like energetically truly mimicking in some kind of way that I can understand, but it seems to possibly be there, so I thought I'd point it out. Okay. Also, there's a new paper about Betelgeuse possibly being the next galactic star to supernova. Good candidate for the next galactic supernova. Also, Gonzalo Lira is still being ignored, that an American journalist has been imprisoned in Ukraine for speaking. Speaking against the viewpoints of those in control. That's all it takes to get basically shut down. Athabasca oil sand. Athabasca oil sand here in Alberta. Here's the Canadian Shield, which I think actually goes over there too. I'm not sure why it's like this. Maybe where it's sourced from. Grenville, which is also Appalachian. I guess here. And then Cordilleran here. These sands here, right, hanging out here, contain zircon grains from all of those places, which I've come across. I looked into Appalachian and Grenville zircons and found them over in the Colorado Plateau, forming the majority of the Navajo sandstone. I found them in Arizona. I found them in many places, possibly over here also. I can't completely remember, but I found them also, I believe, down here even. Mexico. Like, they were transported by some type of system, which I've talked about being related seemingly to the current paths that are here, that are visible still here, as some sort of transport, as well as seemingly going up this way, like through this way, over here, possibly up this way and into here. But this is the first time. So what I did today was I looked for Canadian Shield zircons in other places, and I found them here in Alberta, which is somewhat reasonable. But more interesting with Alberta is the presence of not just Canadian Shield zircons, but also Appalachian and Grenville zircons, all the way over here somewhere, pretty far away, like something that needs explained. Here are some possible paths they suggest, which is interesting. They generally show across here underneath. So I've been talking about how flow goes generally across here, across this way, and then comes down this way, comes over here, goes up this way. But also across, and I believe in here. So it's possible they also go across and like up that way. So if we go back here, across and like up into the system up that way to then make their way to that location. And this generally just shortcuts it, but like they're also over here, so there's a good chance it's more of this nature. I would say even possibly like entering in and coming out like over here and going that way. And also not doing that, just going shorter ways. But as like a long route, going over here, down this way, over here, up here, and then up through here, and then getting caught in general currents here that then brought it over there, somewhere exactly. Also, we're finding some evidence of directions of current flows by where things were transported. Conclusion section describing most of the sediment in the McMurray Formation. McMurray contains detrital zircons, which are interpreted to have been originally derived from eastern North America. How and when remains unresolved. Derived. And then the rest of the conclusion section. How and when were transported and deposited in Western Canada remains unresolved, with options including direct transport via a large-scale early Cretaceous river system and others that consider recycling of long-traveled sediment that was once deposited between Appalachia and northeastern Alberta. In either instance, the presence of abundant Appalachian grains in the Athabasca oil sands highlights the importance of transcontinental sediment dispersal across this portion of North America. So also I found these again, Arizona, Colorado, Plateau, and South America. I don't know where those papers are. I've definitely talked about it in previous videos in a similar manner. And then Eagle Basin and Paradox Basin, which are basically a Colorado Plateau region, also have grains from the Appalachian Grenville and from the Canadian Shield. Grains interpreted to be eroded from Appalachian, interpreted as sourced from Grenville, interpreted to have originally sourced from Canadian Shield. And then this one, Paradox Basin, shows a similar age grain size relationship. I didn't actually look to make sure Paradox Basin is actually has Canadian Shields. I just took that at that point. It's like, all right. And then on isotopic evidence from northwestern Washington, from here, basically where the Missoula flood is, and the Columbian River basalt. So in that region, these observations suggest a source area in the northeastern Canadian Shield or Greenland rather than in Scandinavia or western Laurentia, so further, not closer. Not sure why Scandinavia is like... So basically just even further than Greenland. I guess they were conjoined enough. Like this was adjacent. Greenland was there right abutting it pretty much until a wedge formed, I guess. Started to form. Then a space opened up between. Possibly a current going this way that then got caught in this region and swirled with a cross current. And I guess swirled this way because of a cross current, or vice versa, swirled past it and then back into the cross current and then past it to like go counter to it, because if it's going this way, we would be going into the current that way. But anyway, so there's zircons from somewhere over here in Washington. These observations, combined with, which they're talking about here, combined with extremely negative hafnium whatever that is, in Paleoproterozoic and Paleozoic grains suggest a source area in the northeastern Canadian Shield or Grenville. Okay, so there's that. Here's the abstract, which is just kind of referencing some of the peaks. And Greenland, most likely source is the Greenland Caledonides. So Greenland even. Then let's go to this one. This one's real interesting. This is Sears and Baranek, not C's, showed detrital zircon evidence of a connection between the Colorado Plateau and the Labrador Sea. So according to them, Colorado Plateau is over here pretty much, or here, I guess. This region has grains, like there's evidence of grains from over here flowing to here. And notice the time frame that the maps start at. Like if we open this, they don't have a map for like building into 65 million. Let's see. Let's find any reference to that number. Here's these. I'm not completely sure beforehand what was happening. I mean, this is, to me, what this is saying, if like 65 million makes a lot of sense for there to just be this drainage to here and over here and down here. Why is it draining? Because the Earth is expanding and the oceans are actively growing at basically the KT boundary. That's when the Earth starts to rapidly expand, so it has all this space for the water to flow in, and it literally does. It just flows out from off of the surface here, really the whole surface here, and flows out this way. It also flows out this way, so there's more going on, but flows out this way in a measurable way. Like, notice where this is flowing. It's flowing under the glaciers of the Younger Dryas time frame. Because it's simultaneous. Like the Younger Dryas boundary is the KT boundary. They literally are the same. And if we take the things that we've separated and overlay them, then they will have like indications that there's parallels, like to not account for what's going on here while trying to analyze the Younger Dryas events is missing details. I mean, because we've separated the details and been like, those are over there at the KT boundary, those are over there at the Younger Dryas. They're literally millions of years apart, so they're not related, but they are simultaneous because this is actually flawed method. This is the KT boundary, which is also the Younger Dryas boundary. Zircons, let me read what I said here. Zircons from Labrador Sea that are sourced from at least as far south as Montana and Idaho, and possibly beyond into the Colorado Plateau and the Great Basin. Colorado Plateau, Great Basin. So possibly sourced from here, at least sourced from here, all the way over here. Just seemingly because it's hard to tell like exactly which portion it's sourced from. So minimum of Montana, Idaho, but possibly up to as far away as there. And I'd say probably, because it probably is coming through this region, like a current generally going up to here and up to that way, which there's current coming out here, so it would be sourced this way, up here, up there. This current, without going through the plateau, and just like the Great Basin material, would then be sourced over that way as well, through Montana and Idaho. So like, it only makes sense to me. Then there, then there's this impact, supposed impact. This is supposedly an impact right here, which, according to this paper and other papers, like it has a lot of dates. My interpretation is it wasn't that strong of an event, so it like some parts of near the center, it changed the dates by resetting the clock, but essentially pushing enough energy through the zircons to change the dating, or through the materials. I don't know if they're zircons in this case that they're using to date for potassium argon method, yielding this date. But they also found some of them at 200. Like, that's really far apart. 336 and 200. So they even reported initially that the younger estimates were due to argon loss post impact. So that the argon loss is just like hiding the age of 202, but then people are like, well, that doesn't fit the other data. Like, we're seeing other impacts, like the Chesapeake, the Papagai, which is elsewhere. It's in Russia, I think. Siberia. That is that it? Let's look at it here. I'll just do that. Papaya. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Fly. I'm not sure where this one's supposed impact is, but it looks like there's a lot going on over here. That would be indicative that whatever they're talking about is not an impact. We also see a really big structure here that looks like it goes this way and around and then creates these little fan things on this side. Runs into the resistance here. Whatever this is, literally runs into it and bends back, influencing that boundary like that. Possibly going through over here somewhat, but then going down this way instead, like wrapping around, but also just going down and going into this region, seemingly filling this like big circle with a nucleus here, relatively. Okay, anyway, so that's going on at 36 million, 35 million. Chesapeake Bay impacts, which we've been talking about. Tom's Canyon, which we've been talking about in this one, but not at the same time. These are all forming simultaneous relatively, which is another indication that the Earth is expanding and things are happening globally where things are breaking apart, bonds are breaking, which are then like inducing spikes of energy emissions that then are seen as impact craters. That's kind of my interpretation. It's still a little foggy, admittedly. Okay. Detrital zircons is worth noting, but detrital zircons from the Gulf of Mexico include, so the Gulf of Mexico has Western Cordilleran Arc, Appalachian Uchida, which is just like a continuation like this way somewhere. So like, though possibly this even, I'm not completely sure anymore. Oh. I guess there. So maybe that there, I don't know. But anyway, the Gulf of Mexico has zircons from those places. Grenville, again, the Appalachians pretty much. Mid-continent granite, rhyolite, which I don't know where that is. Let's see. My interpretation was that was near the Lake Superior. This structure, but I'm not sure. Eastern. I guess these from these regions, which makes sense. That would be in the Gulf of Mexico. Like these ones make sense; they'd be in the Gulf of Mexico. But it's worth noting that so are the Canadian Shield and Africa, Pan-African sources, Pan-African sources and Canadian Shield sources. Although admittedly, as well as sparse, so not that much of them, but they got there relative to the rest because they're probably just more proximal, so more sourcing than the more nearby or more distant stuff. But the Gulf of Mexico has stuff in it from over here. Let's see exact where that is like referring to exactly. I'm assuming it's generally here. It's probably there. Pan-African belts, 500, 650. Yeah. Yep, okay. So it could be even here, I guess. Notably, that's Trans-Saharan Seaway region. Whoa. Mozambique belt. Let's see. Is it in English? Looks like it. Oh my god, this is a huge text. I can't look at this right now. Wherever. Okay. Yeah, so I thought I'd update on that stuff. Let's go back to this one. It's so incredible. I think it's really, really relevant. This we talked about, this kind of thing going across like that. Out of that corner generally. I'm not sure what that were even. Drainage divide. Drainage divide. Notice there's no reference to up here. But if we go this way, over here, this way, out. If we go look at Google Maps, let's look at this. Or not Google Maps. Can't really see what's going on. Like, we can see some things, but let's go here. Okay, loaded. Good, good. There's a little more definition here. We can see contours. So here we can see contours. What I noticed is this contour. So if we just imagine a current's coming this way and there's a current coming this way. Let's say theoretically there's a current coming this way or this way through here though. Generally between Greenland and the rest of North America. And it comes through and it goes down along here, just along here. Then another current running into it would interact with it. So let's say it's flowing here at like this boundary, generally speaking, or like a bulk current. Then that would kind of make sense that a current runs into it, and instead of just going straight, it bends in the direction of the current and goes out and joins it like this way. It just goes out and joins it, but also bends inward. Instead of joining it, it divides and goes this way and just wraps around this way and comes around and runs into itself, like pushes the majority of the current coming across, pushes it higher, so it like opens space and goes up to this boundary and comes in here within this boundary, and then basically around, and then here, and just fills here with like with an eddy. But then what it's doing from that eddy is like current is flowing this way. So it's running into this and etching, and just generally like the overall pressure forcing this flame this way and flowing this way, where it then flows in here. Like there's more than just out. It's not, this just shows like river systems. In reality, it's much more like ocean currents. It's much more like ocean currents than river systems, where there are like ocean current rivers like this. It's going in relatively a river. But within that river, there's currents that flow back opposite to it. Opposite and join it at times, but continue opposite and go back like this way. And form an overall ocean current so that there's a like continual process. So my thought is like these things going down here. There's also a current coming this way, going across here. Generally speaking, there's a current coming down this way and a current coming up this way that are feeding into here, interacting with here, creating boundaries. So if we look at like this, then has a spiral that's shooting a flame behind it in here of currents that maybe preferentially go like that way, along that angle to a degree. Like these lines up here are actually more so that way. Whereas over here, they're like branching off. And then it has to bend in the resistance to go down like the center of this flame. It goes in sideways and bends, and then it goes down through here, but like a maximum current goes along this boundary, and then the pressures over here just bend it over this way where it interacts with these regions, creating them. going down through here, interacting with here, with these lakes as like a boundary, down through around the Allegheny Plateau, basically, down this way, and flows across in here, around here, but like splitting in many ways like an ocean current does. So it's not just going like that, it's also splitting off, going around something like that, splitting off, going up this way, like literally dividing from this current. That's interesting. There's like a spiral there. I don't know if they're just... I don't know why they have that spiral on the map. It seems to be the only place that exists. Is that real? Let's look at this. That's not real, is it? Where is it happening? I don't see anything in the terrain whatsoever. Just thinking that would be real interesting if this map like had some subtlety, and then I mean it's straight up a spiral. I don't know why. Okay, I'll be back. See you guys next time. Peace out.